Hey, greetings, it's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and I wanted to talk about Module 5, Personal Leadership Development. So your goal really this week is to do some research and identify techniques that would help you ethically build power and influence in an organization. You want to talk about how you can self-leadership contribute to your personal development, do a self-reflection and share what leadership skills you could develop to be a more effective leader. So you may have seen me say this, but where we put our focus, that's where we get our results. And there's a really wonderful model. It's called Gerhardt's window. I don't know if you've seen that model before, but essentially it says leaders don't know what they don't know, or people don't know what they don't know. And so we need other people in order to grow, but we also need to do some self-reflection to grow. And so we know what other people know about us. We know what we know that other people don't know about us. Then there are people that know things about us that we don't know. And then there are things about us that nobody knows about us, not including ourselves. And so those are each of the 4 different quadrants of the Gerhardt's window. And so you really, in order to know what you know about yourself, it's kind of important. It's kind of like doing a SWOT analysis. You know, if you are doing a personal SWOT analysis and you recognize what your strengths are, well, any organization that has strengths, you want to continue to focus on maintaining those strengths. But same thing with ourselves. You know, what am I strong at? What do I do? Well, I'm approachable. Are you really approachable? How do you know you're approachable? Well, I know I'm approachable because employees are constantly coming at me and asking good questions. Aha! Well, maybe you're not so clear on making sure that people have clear instructions. So maybe you've got some a deficiency in how you communicate. And one of my favorite leadership models that I do in my workshops is the Myers-Briggs. And the Myers-Briggs is a personality assessment that helps us understand what our preferences are. And then you come to realizing that with the 16 different types of personalities, no wonder why. There's conflict because I'm speaking my language of my personality type. But my subordinate that is frustrated with me or doesn't appear to get things done, or I'm frustrated with him or her, it's because I'm not giving directions in a way speaking their language. And again, I think the really good leaders know that when in Rome, do as the Romans. You know, and that's the platinum rule. You know, a lot of people like to live off of the golden rule. Well, hey, I'm going to treat people how I want them to treat me. Well, that's really good if you're trying to get people to treat you right, which is not a bad thing. But if you're not speaking their language, maybe you're being disrespectful to them. When I say speak their language, I mean they're speaking their language of their personality. So that's why being a leader really takes some active thinking. You know, what am I doing well? How do I know I'm doing it well? What can I do different? And how do I know what I can do different to be even more effective? So you might be familiar with what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm talking about some theory based on influence and theory about power. And we get power, of course, from the people around us. So that's how we wield power that's given to us by others. And so leaders can't be leaders without followers, right? Okay, so let's get into this. Let's talk about power. Power underlines the manager's effectiveness. It's essential for managers and powers the ability to change the behaviors of others. Power versus authority and influence. Authority is the right to try to change or direct others. It's the notion of legitimacy. So as a leader in an organization, if you have a leadership title and people report directly to you, well, there you are. You are a formal leader and authority. But we all have some sort of influence on other people, no matter what our title, gender, or background. We need to recognize where that comes from. So influence is usually more subtle, less reliable, and weaker, and the more power we have, the more influence we have. So Kelman's theory of influence has 3 reasons why people give in to others' attempts to influence them. 1 is compliance. That's behavior that results in rewards or avoidance of punishment. 2, identification, the desire to maintain and personally satisfy the relationship. And then finally, internalization, the belief that the power is consistent with one's own values. So as we are interacting with other people, we have to think about why people do what they do. Are they doing things out of fear? Hopefully not. Are they doing it because they really want to do it? And I think the best leaders recognize that if you are trying to strengthen the organizational culture, you have to identify the qualities of the ideal culture that you'd like to have and train people to adapt to creating that quality, those culture qualities, and then hiring people through the right interview questions to help assess whether or not they're a fit for that ideal culture. And so people will fight change, but if you can get people to understand why the changes benefit them, they're going to want to do their best. And that's the satisfying there that we talk about. So aligning people's values, the what's in it for them, and that takes really understanding who you're interacting with so that you can make the right adaptations. So this theory, if you're familiar with it, came out of the 1950s. These 2 researchers, Raven and French, they decided that there are 5 different bases of power, and those bases of power are reward, coercive, legitimate, referent, and expert power. They all have their place at the right time, but if you misuse your type of power, it may weaken you in the longer run. You know, I'm very fond of reminding leaders that coercive power gets the fastest results. But as Maya Angelou once said, one of America's greatest philosophers of all time, she says, you don't always remember what people say to you, but you always remember how people make you feel. And it's our emotions that move us to act or not act. And as leaders, we need to be earning people's hearts and minds, not just their hands and their legs. And so we do that in different ways. And so we have to recognize how we're wielding our power and what we're doing well and where our areas of opportunity are all the time. And that's why I'm a big fan of tools like the Myers-Briggs to help you not only understand yourself, but understand the differences and what to look for in other people so that you can make adaptations in the way you interact with other people, how you lead. And that's really important to understand, that if you've just got one small bag of tricks that you use, you're probably not as effective as you could be. But if you really recognize that it's the best leaders that are making earnest adaptations for the needs of other people on their team, that's where you earn the respect of other people, where they want to go above and beyond. So that's the theory. So reward power, anybody can have reward power, but it's best when it's coming from an authority. You know, but, you know, just if you go to a coworker who's on a horizontal level with you and you just reward them by praising them or giving them a small token of appreciation, you'll probably get those same results. So the more that we reward people and tell people that they're meeting our expectations, chances are that they're going to continue to deliver those results. there's a book that came out in the 1990s, First Break All the Rules, and it's a research from the Gallup Institute where they found out that the best managers out of thousands of managers that were interviewed, and then looking at the results, the best managers were praising very specifically each employee in a very genuine way every week, or I always say every 7 days. And so be recognizing the power of recognition and reward, it can go a long way in your organization. Of course, you have to be specific and genuine as you do things, and it's pretty amazing how tokens of appreciation can go a long way. I can remember meeting a manager that the company gave him a pen for his service, and the CEO of the company told him how much he appreciated the good work that he was doing and recognized some of the specific things as he handed him a pen. And it was just a pen. It wasn't a $100 pen or anything like that, but it was a nice pen, but it was the recognition that really meant the difference to this employee. Coercive power, as I mentioned before, it's a one way to get the quickest power, get things done. But if you are producing fear in other people because you're a coercive manager, people are probably talking badly about you behind their back, and they probably have one foot out the door looking for another company who wants and will value their talents and experiences. So when you lose, most people quit their managers when they quit their company. And so if a good manager is finding ways to keep employees satisfied, they recognize that they should use coercive power to as little as possible. So if employees make mistakes, you could choose to make a big deal about it, but how you handle discipline, giving people the benefit of the doubt, helping people understand why what they've done isn't right, that type of leadership will go a long ways, and they'll remember how you treated them. But if you're forcing down policy down their throats, and you're looking for things wrong and looking for ways to beat them up or making them feel bad because they've made mistakes, chances are you're the weak link on the team. So leaders have the biggest influence on success, and that's why this is such an important class to take, because you really have to take a look at all the different models that we're offering and do a deep introspective look on what am I doing well and what could I be doing better. So legitimate power, that's the title that you may have. And what we know from studying leadership is we naturally follow hierarchy. And even if you think about the family unit, kids naturally follow what the parents have to say. And even as adult children, we still look up to our parents with a certain type of respect. But in the workplace, we're given titles, and our titles allow us to officially ask people to do certain things within their job, and that's the legitimate part. Parents and teachers and reverends and friends, they have what's called referent power, and we earn referent power in a lot of different ways. But maybe we're doing it through charisma. Maybe we're doing it because people just like us, and so that's an interesting. Referent is kind of an old word, but it really is about respect, and it's about really recognizing that even though there aren't official titles that legitimately give the power to influence other people, we are all circle of influences for people, or an influence in people in our own circle, in other words. And so that we do that with our kids. We condition them to follow our directions. Legally, I guess they have to, but we kind of naturally, psychologically listen to what our parents ask us to do, and we learn to respect that. Or other elders, generally people with more experience. So, speaking of experience, let's talk about experts. So We go to school so that we can gain more knowledge about how things work, and that knowledge makes us an expert. You know, I wouldn't dare work on my own car. These days, we're kind of at the mercy of automotive experts in order to make sure our car is running effectively. But same thing with computers. Or we get different areas of expertise over different things. If we're department heads or division heads in our organization, we have a certain area of expertise that helps us help our people be the best that they can be. But generally that expert power comes from our experiences and education that we have. So we need to make sure that we're yielding this power properly by being a good coach to other people. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have legitimate power over other people, but we do need to recognize that the more expertise that we gain through studying, going to school, figuring things out, those are the things that help give us more power. That's what we're talking about. So let's talk a little bit about informal versus formal power. We've kind of started talking about that a little bit. So expert and referent power are some of the informal bases of power that we've talked about, and then the formal bases of power are legitimate, reward, and coercive. And of course, reward can fall into that informal base, but the bottom line here is that you have to recognize that satisfaction, happiness, those kinds of things help move to make people make different actions. If you watch my motivation video, you recognize that when we are inspired by other people because they're touching on our values, we're more likely to be able to influence people to do things differently. There's politics in every organization. We just have to recognize that politics exist. And our leaders have power, and they gain more power or less power by how they're yielding their decisions and their words and their symbols based on what people are looking for. And so the golden rule in my book really is he or she who has the power gets to make the rules. And so recognizing the systems that are in place and the people who are in power, and recognizing that you gain more power when you are doing the right thing, including helping leaders make the best decisions possible, but recognizing what your responsibilities are and doing them well, and respecting the political systems that are in place in your organization. So ingratiation behavior really is about, I like to say, platitudes, making people feel good about themselves. Impression management is really important. How do people see you? Information management, do people have what they need? Coalitions and networks, they're always in place, and the small coalitions help get things done, and we have to be aware of who's in whose network in organizations, and then be able to tap into them and make sure that we're doing favors for people and being available to help other people outside of our own departments and within our own departments. And those are the things that help make the organization stronger. So are we yielding those political tactics properly? So we can never undo things that we've done without people remembering the mistakes that we've had. And so really looking out for people's best interests really is the best way to go. Taking on more responsibility, being ethical and understanding what the expectations are of other people, and delivering upon those things. And that's really important in any organization, is to recognize who's really getting things done, how do things really work, and how can I be better at making sure that I'm using the political system properly and I'm being ethical in what I do, because you only have your responsibility ultimately after managing your own self. So don't be devious in your political tactics. This slide talks about taking no prisoners, dividing and conquering, excluding the opposition. Gosh, you know, if you're working for an organization, everybody should be on the same page and everybody should have everybody's back. It just takes one person to create division in an organization, and that ultimately is making the organization weaker. So how we say things to people matters. Make people feel included, engage your employees, get that information that you need to know what you don't know. So this is a term, maybe you guys know who Machiavelli is, but ultimately don't manipulate people. You really have to believe in people, and you have to give trust to people. The way that we treat people makes people understand how we feel about them. I think sometimes leaders don't realize that they're talking down to people. I do a lot of diversity workshops, and we talk about managing our biases a lot, and sometimes we don't recognize the unconscious biases that we have. Too many times I get called to do diversity workshops because maybe there was a male manager who was talking down to women, like in a way, you know, not only sexual harassment, but in ways where, you know, he clearly that he thought men were the stronger of the genders and that women were weaker. And that's, you know, people are people. You can't be going, all women are like this or all men are like this. And so we learn our biases very often from observing other people in our life. Most people have good intentions, but really being aware of how we treat people on a more conscious level affects the level of our relationships. So be careful not to talk down to people. Talk with people. We're all employees of the organization, no matter what our title is, and treating people like they truly do have value will significantly increase your power and influence over people. You know, you earn the people's minds and hearts and hands and legs to get them to do the right thing. So don't be socially domineering and manipulative and controlling other people. I'm not going to read the slide to you, but you can pause the video and read it yourself if you want to do that. But bottom line, don't be a Machiavellian leader. Because there's always consequences. People see how you treat other people. People will remember what it feels like to be treated that way. And people will talk behind their backs. One of the most powerful flows of communication in an organization is the informal grapevine communication, the water cooler talks. And you are only as strong as your weakest link on your team. And if you can continue to earn the respect of other people because you're giving respect, you're going to have a lot more power. But that really takes a lot of introspection about what is it that we're doing well and what can we do better. So again, I apologize for the long video here, but I want you to be thinking about how we treat other people and where your strengths and your weaknesses are, and really try to take it on a deeper look. If your organization isn't doing 360 evaluations, consider seeing if you can. There's a lot of powerful tools out there like DISC, which is a behavior assessment that helps you really understand where your strengths and preferences are. Myers-Briggs is a personality assessment that's really powerful. There's something called social styles, which is really a powerful tool too. So there's so many different tools that you can use to do introspection, and you could look these things up online. So anyway, I'm starting to ramble, but I wanted to make sure that I gave you a video this week that hopefully helps you really think about your own self and your personal leadership development so that you can be the best leader that you could possibly be. Thank you so much for listening to all 25 minutes of this video. I hope that you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr. Paul Gerhardt.